So our theme for the month of September is Love Out Loud. And if we have to go back to school, isn't that the best first lesson to have? To love out loud? And I want an A. Anybody want an A? I want an A in loving out loud. Yes. So you'll know how I start our themes. I always start our themes with defining words. And the word that I want to define for us is love. And I want to define it from other people's definitions of love, not the Webster Dictionary. So the first one that I want to share with you is by M. Scott Peck. He was the author of The Road Less Traveled. He defines love as the will to exchange oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Love is as love does. Love is an act of will, namely, but an intention and an action. Will also implies choice. We do not have to love. We choose to love. And I think most of us heard this definition of love from the Bible or probably at a wedding. It's from Corinthians 13:4-8. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. Ooh, I love that. And the founder of Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, defines love as the self-givingness of spirit. So this is what we get to do out loud. This is what we get to do out loud, at least for this month. And then if you want to go back to the other things, you could do that, all right? But at least for September, we get to love out loud and experience through us and as us the self-givingness of spirit. So today's message is, today, I love myself so much. I love myself so much. So I just want to stress the emphasis on the so much part, because it could have just been, I love myself, right? But we're adding in the so much part, right? And we know that so much means a lot, yes? So just think about your favorite meal that you love so much. Bring it to mind, like taste it, smell it, yeah? So much that you're just savoring every bit of it. It's just fabulous, yeah? Loving yourself so much means that you have the practice of treating yourself fabulously. Fabulously. Bell Hooks writes in All About Love that self-love is the foundation of our loving practice. Self-love is the foundation of our loving practice. So raise your hand or write in the comments if you regard loving yourself as a spiritual practice. I see some hands raised. Yes, 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 yes. Wonderful. If you're with us on Facebook, you could put it into the comments. If you're watching the replay later on, you could put it into the comments. So when we talk about love as a spiritual practice, we're talking about something that we are committed to engaging in all the time. It's on a daily basis. It's not based on if we feel like it or not. It's not based on if it's raining outside. It's not based on if we woke up late. It's not based on if we're feeling upset. We do it regardless, no matter what, as part of our spiritual practice. So are you that way about loving yourself? No matter what you do, you love yourself so much, no matter what you do. That's a practice for me, y'all. It is a practice for me because sometimes I catch myself judging myself, analyzing myself, and making myself wrong, right? And then I have the opportunity to do what? Take a breath, come back to myself because I done wandered off somewhere, and say to myself again, as Christine invited us to do, I am love. I am love. Yes? So think about something that you really, really want, and you were willing to do whatever you needed to do to obtain it, even if it seemed impossible. You were determined. Are you that determined to love yourself? Do you have that will and making that choice to love yourself so much that you will do everything to demonstrate to yourself that you love yourself? Let me see hands. Okay, all right. We'll see. We'll see. So Bell Hooks writes in the book All About Love, whether we are engaged in a process of self-love or of loving others, we must move beyond the realm of feeling to actualize love. This is why it is useful to see love as a practice. Loving myself so much is a spiritual practice that requires that we are actively engaged in it. No drive-by loving ourselves. No drive-bys, right? The love is actualized. That means that we turn it into action. It's not just felt, and feeling it is good, right? Because we know the power of the feeling tone, but it's real and it's realized. It is demonstrated in how we treat ourselves and also how we treat others. Loving myself so much includes loving all others, because while we don't see any others, we just see reflections of ourselves. So loving ourselves requires that we include all other selves, all of them. We love our neighbors as ourselves, as the good book tells us. A good indicator of actualization of our love for ourselves is really how we treat other people. So Parker Palmer, who wrote one of my other favorite books, Let Your Life Speak, he says this: only as we are in communion with ourselves can we find community with others. And Thomas Merton said, love is our true destiny. We do not find the meaning of life by ourselves alone. We find it with one another. So we need each other. We need each other. This feeling of love and the actualization of love. How much fun would that be if it was just me? I want to share it with people, right? I want to have the experience of it coming back to me, right? So we're going to do the exercise that I mentioned earlier. So grab your paper, pen, pencil, and we're going to have the opportunity to share what some of our love practices are. So on your paper, just number it 1 through 5 in a row. And your responses are just going to be short, 1 or 2 words. We're not writing a soliloquy. And this is the sentence that I would like for you to complete. I love myself so much that I practice blank. I love myself so much that I practice blank, and you fill in the blank. That's the first one. Okay, just a couple of words, y'all. Here's the second one. I love myself so much that I practice blank. Okay, here's the third one. I love myself so much that I practice blank. Thank you, Roxanne. Here's 4. Can you guess what it is? I love myself so much that I practice blank. I see you, Stacy, on Facebook. And number 5. I love myself so much that I practice blank. And if you like, you can share them in the chat on Zoom, or you can share them if you're on Facebook in the comments, as Stacy is doing. Thank you, Stacy. I'll give you a minute to do that. And then if there's someone willing to unmute themselves and share their 5. So just raise your hand, because Cheryl, I think, will have to unmute you. So who would like to share? I love myself so much that I practice. Roxanne put in the chat, patience and meditation, self-discipline, and self-acceptance. Beautiful. Identification versus comparison. Positive talk. Love that. Love that, Roxanne. Forgiveness. Can you still hear me? Okay, good. Forgiveness, patience, non-attachment, non-judgment, seeing beyond experience. Oh, that's good, Reverend Jennifer. I love myself so much. I practice pottery, meditation, spirituality, travel, and relationships. That's nice, Sue. I love that pottery. Stacy sharing. I love myself so much. I practice meditation, giving myself to others, and living life in joy. Thank you, Stacy. Let's have one more. Okay. I love myself so much that I practice. If I could get it back up. Susie sharing, eating healing foods, smiling at strangers, reading daily guides. That's beautiful. Jill practices yoga. That's fabulous. So these are wonderful, wonderful things that you are practicing as a demonstration and to actualize loving yourself, not just a little bit, but so much. So my question is it a spiritual practice? Because remember, a spiritual practice is something that we do no matter what. No matter what, we are eating healing foods, smiling at strangers, and reading our daily guides. No matter what, we are meditating. We are working as relationships. We're demonstrating forgiveness and patience and non-attachment and non-judgment and seeing beyond experience. Oh, Reverend Jennifer, I have to tell you, I have to take a breath on the seeing beyond experience one. As a spiritual practice, that's the one I'm leaning into even more for myself, seeing beyond the experience as a practice for loving myself so much. So can you commit? Because this is what you say you do. Can you commit to doing these things that you have written down? Because you have your recipe, right? Remember that meal that you savor? You got your recipe right there. Are you willing? Because you have a choice, right? You have a choice. Are you willing to make your recipe into a delicious dish that you eat every single day to nourish yourself as the actualization of loving yourself so much? Let me see hands. Christine put up 2 hands. Yes, to take it in fully. So I want to share a couple with you, and some of them you mentioned. So I love myself so much that I practice self-love. Bell Hooks says one of the best guides to be self-loving is to give ourselves the love that we often dream about receiving from others. Can't receive what we're not willing to give to ourselves. And I just want to share something that she writes in the book and see if this resonates with you. She says, there was a time when I felt lousy about my over 40 body, saw myself as too fat, too this or too that, yet I fantasized about finding a lover who would give me the gift of being loved as I am. It is silly, isn't it, that I would dream of someone else offering to me the acceptance and affirmation I was withholding from myself. You can never love anybody if you are unable to love yourself. Do not expect to receive the love from someone else you do not give to yourself. Self-love as a practice. It's on page 67 at the bottom and 68. All About Love. All About Love by Bell Hooks. And this is what Ernest Holmes has to say about self-love. As all is mind, and as we attract to us what we first become, until we learn to love, we are not sending out love vibrations. And not until we send out those vibrations can we receive love in return. So we have to feel and actualize that love vibration and send it out there. And guess what? We will receive it back. Yes? The second one, I love myself so much I practice, and a couple of you had this one, self-acceptance. When we can see ourselves as we truly are and accept ourselves, we build the necessary foundation for self-love. So we practice self-acceptance. Self-responsibility, the ability to respond, right? Taking responsibility means that in the face of barriers, we still have the capacity to invent our lives, to shape our destinies in ways that maximize our well-being. Who is responsible for you loving yourself so much? You are, right? You are. No one else has that responsibility. So practice self-responsibility. And then a big one for many of us is forgiveness. So I love myself so much, I practice self-forgiveness. Forgiveness is one of the highest expressions of self-love. Bell Hooks writes, conscious forgiveness for others and ourselves is a process of emptying out, wherein we let go of all the waste so that there is a clear space within where we can see others as ourselves. I love that, emptying out the waste, right? Refusing to not forgive ourselves and others is like holding on to waste. We got to empty that stuff out so that we can create a clear space for that which we truly desire. So let's practice self-forgiveness. And number 5, I love myself so much, I practice self-care and community care. And this comes from Valerie Kerr, who wrote the book, See No Strangers. She says, loving ourselves is frontline social justice work. When asked why we should practice radical care for ourselves, Angela Davis responded, longevity. If we don't start practicing collective self-care now, there is no way to imagine, much less reach, a time of freedom. That means finding ways to breathe life into the world we want here and now. So CSL has a big vision. The vision is creating a world that works for everyone. And part of that equation is self-care and community care. Because guess what? If the community's not well, then you're not well either. And the way that the larger society views this, especially here in the United States, is it's all about me, my stuff, my care, my this, my that, and everyone else can fend for themselves. But we know the truth. We know that we are one. And we know that what impacts me impacts everybody else, because there's just one life. Just one life. So we practice self-care and community care. So in closing, I want to share these words from Bell Hooks and from Ernest Holmes. And I just hope that it encourages you to commit to practicing loving out loud, just to practice it by loving yourself so much. Bell Hooks says, love does not lead to an end of difficulties. It provides us with the means to cope with our difficulties in ways that enhance our growth. Love does not lead to an end to difficulties. It provides us with the means to cope with our difficulties in ways that enhance our growth. Yes, I see you, Reverend Jennifer, share a common thread in Blue Zones is community and living in community. Yes, that is longevity. These people in blue zones are living to be 100 plus because they're not isolated from each other, right? We live in neighborhoods, but we're still isolated from each other. I'm grateful that I live in the true sense of community. I know all my neighbors know me, and we look out for each other. But it's not like that everywhere. And so you could be the beacon of light for that to happen, instead of waiting for someone else to knock on your door and say, welcome to the neighborhood, and you've been living there for 15 years. You knock on the door, right? And make that connection. Why? Because you love yourself so much. That's why. Bell Hooks also writes this: the light of love is always in us, no matter how cold the flame. It is always present, waiting for the spark to ignite, waiting for the heart to awaken and call us back to the first memory of being the life force within a dark place, waiting to be born, waiting to see the light. The light is within us. Ignite that spark within you. Be that beacon of light in the world. It's waiting for you. It's waiting for your unique light. And then we'll let Ernest Holmes have the final word. He writes, you belong to the universe in which you live. You are one with the creative genius back of this vast array of ceaseless motion, this original flow of life. You are as much a part of it as the sun, the earth, and the air. There is something in you telling you this, like a voice echoing from mountaintop of an inward vision, like a light whose origin no man or woman has ever seen, like an impulse welling up from an invisible source. You belong. You belong here. And you love yourself so much that you know that you belong and that your living is not in vain. It's not in vain. So what are we doing this month? At least those practices of I love myself so much. Are you willing to commit to that? And then we'll see what happens in October. Hands? Don't raise your hand if you're not going to do it. Just have a willingness, just a willingness. And guess what, y'all? Do the best that you can. Do the best that you can. Peace and blessings. And guess what? I love y'all. I love y'all.